All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews. How's everybody doing out there? And tonight we're going to be talking about episode 2 of season 1 of Kevin Can Go Fuck Himself. It's still, I want to say go fuck himself, but it's just Kevin Can Fuck Himself. But I feel like you're missing an opportunity. It just feels more natural to say go fuck himself. And I'm not just trying to say fuck himself more often, more times in a row. So Murphy is really good in it, and Eric Peterson's really good in it too. If Eric Peterson's job is to basically be what looks like Fred Flintstone crossed with a Muppet, and that's not a bad thing. That's what I think of when I see him in this. His face is so animated, it's almost literally feels animated, but like he's like big, so he looks like one of those big Muppets. But like if they wanted to make Fred Flintstone like a present-day Bostonian. And he's really good at the role he's playing, where you really want him to go fuck himself. In New Trick, the second episode, I had some difficulties with this one because I finally kind of understand Allison's reality and what she do and how she's making all these really obvious mistakes. And part of me was like, why is she making such obvious mistakes? And I had to come to realize that that she's making big mistakes already because she's not a criminal. You know, she's just a regular person who's in a bad situation. And when you open up the newspaper, right, or you watch a video on YouTube or whatever, wherever you get your news, right, and you see video clips of criminals doing something stupid, right, most people, they don't get away with things because they're really not bad, people. They're just making bad choices, right? A lot of people just make bad choices. There are bad people. There's a lot of bad people, but more often than not, people like Allison, I'm going to have a hard time saying Allison and Annie because they're just A names. So her not being good at this is actually a good thing. Okay? If she was like, a Dexter type, right, where all of a sudden she decides she wants to off her husband and just is really good at it, that wouldn't really be true to the character. The character really doesn't know what she's doing, and she's making bad choices because that's what people do. And once I was able to get my head around that, I stopped yelling at the TV in my mind. Because I spent a lot of this episode going, why are you doing that? When it's like, that's what, she's probably would do. She's in a really dark place. She's in a really desperate place. Part of me almost feels like she wants to get caught for something she hasn't even done yet. I think also because she feels guilty still a little bit about her feelings that she's now having for her husband, which is leaning towards murder. So I think that once like I said, once I got past all that, I really did enjoy this episode because she's, absolutely in her dreams now. Now that her other dream is shattered, the new dream is to have some peace and have a scone and a coffee and a book and just be alone and to have some time to herself that she never has. And in the dream, the waitress asks her how she did it, and that's when she's woken up by him jumping on the bed like a fucking toddler. Because guess what, everybody? It's Bill Belichick hoodie day. Now, I'm a collector. I love collecting things. I get excited for collecting things. When I purchased my very first Jack Kirby comic book not too long ago, if I can finally find it. Yeah, see? I got this. My very first Stan Lee Jack Kirby comic book. I was pretty stoked to get it. Was I jumping on the bed like a moron? No. I just wanted to tell my friend, hey, look I finally got my Stan Lee Jack Kirby. No, he's inconsiderately jumping on the bed. And remember, the sitcom stuff is with him in the scene. So he's jumping on the bed. But also remember, this is happening in reality. They're trying to do it in a funny way. like they would with, like, let's say a Kevin James or something jumping on the bed, right? Like a King of Queens singing, like, the cupcakes are here, the cupcakes are here, you know, that kind of thing. Meanwhile, the spouse is laying there trying to get some fucking sleep. An asshat is just freaking out over a torn hoodie that Bill Belichick wore that he spent, what was his exact words that he gave her? In our wedding, less than our car. Now, to be fair, this guy looks like a justice of the peace kind of guy that they'd have a wedding at. So their wedding might not be that much. I would probably say this hoodie's probably somewhere around $1,000, between $1,000 and $2,000. If they spent more than that, if he spent more than that on that hoodie, well, it would mean that they had a nicer wedding than I can imagine. But I can also imagine them not having the most decent car in the world too. Also apparently he's the gift that keeps on giving. He really grates on me as an audience member, and so it makes perfect sense. And I've only been watching this for 2 episodes. This character has been living with him for 10 years. And I always forget to do this, especially when I get excited and I start talking about something. So we're going to segue really quickly into saying, again, if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, or if you're new here to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, all that blah, 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 blah. Just want to get that out of the way so we can start talking again. I really hate forgetting to talk about that stuff so I can get to this stuff. So she's, trying to get things done. He's clearly not doing anything. He can't even get up to check the mail himself, right? He says he's doing something. He's got a donut or something in his hand. That's something. She's got an armful of things, and he wants her to drop what she's doing to go check to see if his Belichick hoodie's here, because he can't even be bothered to get up. He couldn't even ask his father or his friend or the friend's wife to go check. He has to bother her. We also in this scene get the very condescending tone about her making a joke and him saying, "Are you trying to be funny?" Because you know what happens when you try to be funny. Now, in our world, there are a lot of men that somehow don't think women are funny. They think that their jokes are the fucking best, and women, again, just need to stay in their lane. I hate fucking guys like this. Some of the funniest people are women. Alright? And if you don't get it, it means you're a fucking idiot who's got his head so far stuck up his ass. I mean, comedy's relative. Art is relative. Everything is relative, right? I mean, whatever you like from music and movies and TV or sports, it's all relative. But if to make a general statement that women aren't funny is just asinine. And people that have that built-in trigger to say they're not really need to relearn a lot of things in their lives. A lot of people like to bring up Ghostbusters 2016 when it comes to women being funny. Those women in that movie are funny. They can be very, very funny. That movie just happened to not be funny. And so everybody just goes, "Whoa, look at that. Look at that. That's the reason that women aren't funny." No, that's just a bad script and too many people trying to ad-lib and off of a terrible script. But this guy, he's typically, and he says it like twice in the scene about her being funny. Like he's the only one allowed to do anything in this marriage. And so she's like, "No, it hasn't come by yet. Your package isn't here." And this is where we kind of start the subplot with the neighbors, where he gets into this whole thing where the neighbors got their package and they're all into soccer, which is football in London, in Great Britain, and all over the world. They call it football. And we've also got, the people over here in this country for some reason need to get bent out of shape over that. Men need to get bent out of shape over the fact that football to the rest of the world has been football forever, and American football has only been around for less than 200 years, I would say, right? So, and professionally, right, not even 100. So, but we as Americans, the male Americans, we this is ours. Football means men, and anything else that's not this is, I don't know what I'm doing right now. And so, British people liking soccer, I say soccer. I don't, it's, to me, I'm not denigrating it. I just mean, whatever. It's just in my brain is soccer. I just don't understand that. But it starts this whole war between the neighbors because they think because he didn't get his package and he tracked it and said it was delivered that they stole it because they're not fans of American football. They're fans of something else. Well, what we find out is that she took it, and I was so happy to see that she took it. She goes to an alley. She just looks at it, this thing that's representing more money, because remember after last episode, all their money that they were saving to get a house, he took and blew it on bad, fake sports memorabilia. Which, who knows, he's probably just bought another fake thing. Any asshole could have done that and said, hey, you know what? He spent the $2,000. Let's put it behind some plexiglass. Right? There's no, when she breaks it, there's no, like, maybe there's a little thing at the bottom that says what it is. Maybe it's real. It doesn't really matter. But she breaks it, and in an act of rebellion, she stole it, put it on, and now she's walking around with it. She's wiping donut, grease and dust all over it. She doesn't give a fuck. This is her big fuck you to him. And I just really love this. So she then, right, she goes to the library. And she wants to look up about how to kill her husband. Now, this was the first scene where I was like, she's literally asking somebody that she's setting up motive. She is literally setting up if something happens to her husband and they start tracking her movements and they go to the library and they find out she was there that day and they ask people questions, the librarian's going to say she was asking about how to kill people. But again, I try to chalk this up to just her being very, very naive, very, very rash, and just literally not understanding what she's doing. Some people will probably watch this and feel differently and think this is just bad writing. And we'll see. Because if it continues in a certain way, it would be bad writing. But for now, this is just the first episode that I'm seeing this. And so I'm going to give it a pass and say that this is why. That she's just completely out of her depth. And she really needs to, she's being rash and she needs to really think about other choices. Because, I mean, there's the librarian even says to her, why doesn't this person just leave? Because she's talking in hypotheticals. Hypotheticals will turn into... if she were to pull this off. She's like, she doesn't want to. She wants him dead. She wants to look up perfect murder. She also talks about how he'd find her, track her down, all this other stuff. But that, that's not the point. She just wants him dead. So she goes to the computer because, and I do believe that, I do buy the fact that she would be in the kind of family that would have to go to the library to get on the internet. There's no shame in that. But the thing is like, he's got a phone, right? He's got a phone that tracks his packages. But she doesn't. How's that fair? If she's going to look up perfect murder, she should have her own smartphone to do it from. She shouldn't have to go to the library. They should be on some kind of family plan or something, I mean, if they're going to make bad decisions, at least give her a goddamn smartphone. But she can't get on because content is locked from the library, because when you look up how to kill somebody perfectly, it's apparently a no-go at a library. But what apparently is a go is watching porn. And there's a guy near her that's clearly watching porn, and so she's going to ask him how he broke the firewall when she finds out that he fucking OD'd in the library. And when the ambulance guys come, she starts talking to them about what happened and how this is kind of freaking her out. And he talks about how people OD all the time on oxycodone, and it's not just for junkies anymore. It's for anybody. Anybody can OD on this stuff. And so that gets her a big old idea for the rest of the episode, which is how to score some oxycodone so she can slip it to her husband and cause him an accidental overdose. And then she's in the clear. But then this is the rest of her fumbling through this episode, where she first tries to go to her doctor. Now, I guess she doesn't understand drug-seeking behavior is frowned upon at doctor's offices, and they know what to look for. And she may not seem like she's one of those people that's scratching their arms and shaking and stuff and just trying to pretend that they're not, trying to get a fix. But she's being suspicious enough where the doctor's like, But also, the doctor goes bowling with her husband and starts suggesting that she talk to him about it, which is like, good Lord, man, how many people... Boston's a pretty big town, man, but I guess this neighborhood, everybody hangs out with everybody like it's fucking Springfield. That's like The Simpsons or something. All these people really, it's like, they all know each other. But I live in a small town and everybody's like this too. So the assistant, though, tries to give her a card saying, hey, if you need somebody to talk to, this is who you talk to. She, assuming it's therapy, and honestly, the way she's talking, anyone would think she's talking about a therapist. She very, very, very much does not want to take this card or to go to therapy, but she begrudgingly takes it, leaves, throws it on the ground, begrudgingly picks it back up. There's a theme here that happens twice in the episode. First, when she wants to leave his clothes on the floor, and she just can't do it. She just can't leave it laying there. And the same thing with the card, is she throws it on the ground and she can't just leave it on the ground. She takes it with, just not because she's littering, but because might as well just take it. Now, not far to know. So the lady that she works with starts asking her if she's given up on her looks. And that not to give up on her looks, because her man, deserves to come home and see a beautiful woman there and not some hose beast, apparently. And my jaw just hit the floor listening to this woman talk. Because, again, like we talked about in the last episode, there's a lot of people, and not just men, who believe that the women's role is to just be this subservient person to the man. That they're still living in that Donna Reed 1950s, not that Donna Reed didn't have her own, like, kind of, she wasn't completely subservient, I don't think, but it was still by those traditional values that people still hold on to. And you know what? If that's what you want, and you're fine with it, great. But don't be spreading that shit around. That's like spreading religion. Keep it to your fucking self. Get out of... Like, I wish she had just told this lady to mind her own business. Now, again, showing how stupid her husband is. He can't even say Alexa. He keeps saying Alexa until she says, well, try saying Alexa, and then he says Alexa. And it was at this point that I realized that this guy is basically Peter Griffin without the cutaways and the limitless budget to make crazy like animated fantasies come true. And it just made me realize, like, she's like real life Lois, because it's both set in like kind of New England. They both have this Fred Flintstone motherfucker as a husband who does not give a shit about them. Just love me unconditionally. Let me do whatever the fuck I want, and bang me whenever I say, and cook dinner for me. And I was just like, holy shit. Also, they can't have kids, apparently. But the reason, and I really do thank God they can't have kids, is he doesn't have time for them. Like he's the only one that needs to be taken care of. Because it would take away from his needs. Now, I subscribe to the whole thing of like, for me personally, all right, I could definitely date someone with kids, right? I don't have a problem with that. I don't want my own particularly, there's sometimes you get that little twinkle in my eye where I go, oh, it'd be so nice to have a little me running around. And then I think, oh God, all the things that come with it. And I go, nope. That in this world's a shithole, but whatever. I'm selfish. I am a selfish person when it comes to certain things. And I think about having to give up my life forever to go to the whims of a child. And I go, nope, no thanks. Not really. I mean, I'm good with kids. And I'm getting way off into the weeds now, right? But if you don't have the capacity to take care of children like this guy, don't have kids, is all I'm saying. So that's one benefit to this whole show, is that they're not running around like 2, 3, 4 kids running around in the background of this show. Thank goodness it's just the two of them. So she confronts the neighbor lady because she basically is like, they don't like it. She doesn't even like her. So she's like, why did you even tell me that he took all the money? Right? Why did you blow up my world? Was that just for fun? Were you just trying to fuck with me? And her response was basically the response that she was trying to bring her back down to reality. Like, her life sucks, so why should she allow anybody else's to be happy? That's how I feel about it. That they're so bitter about their own lives that to see anyone with hopes and dreams needs to be snuffed out. Like, why? If I can't be happy, why should you be? So now they've upped the ante, and he's stealing the neighbor's jersey, and the neighbors are, respond with stabbing a football and leaving it on their front porch. And like, even when her neighbor doesn't even like her, right? Her husband is the friend of her husband, and she gets in her shit. Like, she makes cookies, and she leaves with the cookies. She's like, who are those cookies for? It's like, who the fuck are you? Mind your fucking business. Like, you don't even why do you care? There's so many people like that. But she's bringing the cookies, and this is kind of funny. She's bringing the cookies to the Coke guy that she had Coke, the guy who works in the garage. She thinks he can get her Oxy. And so he's like, well, I can't, but I know somebody who can. And so when she goes home, she finds out that her husband has installed cameras and now has a dog. Again, this is Peter Griffin shit. Just up in the ante, but like more realistic stuff, right? If Peter Griffin was doing this, he'd have, had gun turrets in the yard and fucking Cujo in the backyard. But she has to sneak out of her own house. She tells the dog what she's doing. Because it's just basically like she needs to know, someone needs to understand her pain, so she's telling the dog. So when she gets out there to the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night to get drugs from somebody, this guy's telling her, it sounds strange right off the bat, and he tells her to get in the car, and he thinks she's a prostitute. The guy from the garage was messing with her and told this guy that she'll sleep with, she'll do whatever to you for like $120. So, and she accidentally breaks this guy's nose, which is another thing about Allison's character, is she does a lot of like herky-jerky movements where she kind of punches people whenever she's kind of like kind of scared, she really reacts with like force. So I have a feeling that is going to be a callback a lot more. I think that something big is probably going to happen because of that, how she always does that. So after she fails to get the drugs, goes to her friend Sam's, and they kind of catch up a little bit more. And the whole topic of she used to have friends. She used to have people around her. And when did she get so isolated? And a lot of people are like that. They used to have great social lives. They used to be outgoing, and then they get married to some asshole that, says all the right things, and the guy you're gonna change, and he's so sweet when he's just with me. Flash forward 10 years later, and now your only reason to live is to serve this fat piece of shit that jumps on the bed in the middle of the morning for a torn Belichick hoodie. And he kind of stands up for himself because he doesn't quite know why she's there, why she's talking to him, because, she just wants somebody to listen and nod and agree with her, and he doesn't, which I kind of liked. A lot of people that in real life will just stand there and listen to you and nod, and then behind, will just not give a shit or completely disagree with everything you're saying. At least this guy's honest and saying, look, man, if you want somebody to stand here and be your, like a sounding board for you. So when she gets home, she finds out that all their stuff is gone, but it's not. Her husband's newest scheme is to hide all of their belongings in their neighbor's garage and commit insurance fraud. To say that somebody broke in, probably the neighbors, and get all this money back from all the stuff that got stolen so that he can buy a new jersey since the other one got stolen, and he's found one from the 2017 Super Bowl, so it's going to cost even more money. And he got rid of the dog. And so she finally is like, okay, she's going to try calling this card, which means she thinks she's calling therapy. But when she goes to the address, right, she's told that she's supposed to ask for a wash for the person outside, but it's really drugs. And when she goes inside to get the drugs, now that she knows she's not talking to her therapist, who's there to give her the drugs but her next door neighbor is the one selling the drugs. So now she knows that Allison's looking for oxycodone, and now she's got her over a barrel because she could easily tell her husband, or her husband would tell her husband. There's too many different ways to talk about this. Her husband Neil could tell her husband, and the jig would be up. They'd all think she's on drugs, and instead she just wants to kill him with the oxy, but you can't tell her that either. So now she's in even deeper. I'm very curious to where this is going, and hopefully it's going somewhere interesting. I've got, like I said, I got a little kind of like feelings about it in this episode, but I'm hoping that the lack of knowing anything, being completely a fuck up about all of this, is just due to the character not being an expert at buying drugs and becoming a criminal and planning a murder. I hope that's not just going to keep happening, though, just fumbling like a less competent Walter White. And to think about that, Walter White was smart as hell, but he was completely incompetent at the drug game. And yet they somehow were able to always write him out of the situations that made sense, that were pretty clever. This is not Breaking Bad. They're not going to be these super clever ways out of things. It's going to be more like stumbling into another awful thing to try to snowball. I feel like this is going to snowball and snowball and snowball until something major happens. But I do like it. I still like it. The performances are really strong. The ideas that they're doing with the sitcom and realities and stuff is still working for me. This is definitely not a show that I would want to go on for more than maybe 2 seasons. Even just one. This would be good, just one and done season. If they can if it right. But anyway, that's the end of this review. So if you liked it, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications. Otherwise, if you somehow got to the end of this and hated every single thing I said and you just kind of watched this like a masochist, well, we can give you a better memory. So for those of you who did like this, please look away as we give these people the best 31 minutes of their lives back. You just watched one of the Jimmy Kimmel's My Parents, Ate My Candy videos and laughed your ass off. Have a great night, everybody. See you on the next video.